Hey everybody, how's it going? Christian from Treasure Town here with Chris Tisdale from Cointable, and we're going to be discussing whether or not there's room for a third-party grading service for coins to kind of enter the market and compete and even outdo PCGS and NGC, which are the two main ones. And we're just going to be kind of looking at a lot of the different things that would need to happen, maybe some things that would need to happen more than others, and that sort of thing. And we've got Chris here. So welcome. Thanks for showing up again, Chris.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we should pretty much just get into it, but that's
Yeah.
something that I've thought about a lot. I mean, people talk about it like there's only room for two, and obviously there's been a lot of attempts at other ones, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the specific case studies later on. But I mean, do you think that there is room for a third company to really enter in a meaningful way?
Not only do I think there's room, but I think there's a need. I think based on my experience and what I've seen over the last 10 years, I think it's a necessity. And so yes, I think there's room. I just think that it's going to be it'll take a lot. Whoever does do it, it's a big pill to swallow, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I mean, what stands out to me is you mentioning that there's a need. So I guess we could just kind of get into a little bit of that. Like, what do you think? Why are you saying that pretty much?
Um, I believe that the grading companies have this mantra about them, like, our intention is to protect collectors and to help collectors and to help the hobby by not only assigning grades to coins and help establish the value of said coins, but also, protect buyers from coins that have been worked on, cleaned, just messed with inappropriately, mishandled, whatever it might be, fake, altered, counterfeit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I believe that's what they believe they're here for. But based on my experience with them, I feel like it's just a money grab. I feel like they themselves have lost sight of their purpose, and I think that it just becomes about the money. And I guess that's kind of the world we live in. Unfortunately, I've seen it happen with all sorts of business across every niche and arena. I just think to them it's about more. How do we grade more? And I've consistently watched the consistency become worse and worse and worse and worse to the point now I don't think there is any consistency. The only thing that is constant is the fact that everything's inconsistent with the grading companies. I see more and more labeling errors, clerical errors, missed coins, missed designations. My last batch that came back, I sent 12 coins that were already in NGC holders to NGC. I don't know if I mentioned this to you or not, but 12. They were already graded in NGC holders. I know a lot about Kennedys, and they were specific varieties. I mean, I literally looked on NGC's website at the pictures of the coins that they have pictures of or varieties. I sent them all back. I paid for 12 coins to get the varieties attributed, and they attributed four
Wow.
coins.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a miss. And I
Horrible.
guess I was also thinking like the biggest thing for people is that, yeah, you have consistency. And what consistency really means is that you can get values, when you go to sell, that they actually are worth what they're promising. And I think that, for anybody who's familiar with coins, if you have your coin raw or in a holder that's not PCGS or NGC, you're not going to get the same money as if you have one in that holder for the most part. What do you think would make it to the point where people are willing to pay the same money for a different graded coin as PCGS and NGC? Is that like, I know there's some mention of like registry set collecting that can be what drives it. But what factors would play into people starting to consider a grade worthwhile?
That's a great question. Are you asking me what factors would determine whether or not the market would accepted a
I
third
think
party?
so.
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer to that is very complex. But in a nutshell, I would say, first of all, when these grading companies were started, I mean, we're talking late 80s, no internet. It was almost a way, in fact, if I remember right, it was a way for for the marketers, the telemarketers, and the guys who sold huge lots of coins. It was a way for them to buy coins based on a telephone call. So they wanted to be able to buy coins sight unseen. And so that's why they started establishing the whole concept of an MS60, MS63, MS65, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's why the grading scheme kind of evolved into what it is now, or at least one of the many reasons.
Interesting.
And so there was no internet. The guys who started those first 2-3 companies, they are the giants in the industry now. And so, most serious numismatists or coin dealers know who started PCGS, or they've at least heard the name David Hall, or on the other side, Mark Salzberg or Rick Montgomery, the guy. I mean, big names, the giants in the industry. John Albanese, who I believe started NGC and has since left and then went on to start CAC. He's a world-renowned grader. So, before the internet, I think that those are the types of people who have created what we see the current climate and what it looks like today. Now, contrast with what that looked like back then, again, pre-internet. In our market today, I think that in order for somebody to create a grading company and actually make it, I don't think it's going to have anything to do with their name, their experience, or even whether or not they're good. I think it's going to have everything to do with marketing. It's going to boil down to whether or not even whether or not, it's going to boil down to the market accepting your label and the grade that you put on it and your holder for that coin or that collectible. And so I think it's going to take some incredibly creative marketing and branding skills. And when I say that, I mean like stuff we haven't seen yet. I'm talking like cutting edge guerrilla marketing strategies, things that push the boundaries, things that are out of the box. It's going to take something like that, or in my opinion, it would take something like that for another grading company to get started and be successful.
Yeah, I mean, here's something to throw out. I haven't, we haven't talked about this idea in terms of a new way to approach grading, but I know that some card grading companies for sports will kind of focus on the centering and the edges and like different, like we only have 0 to 70. Do you think that there's room for a grading company to come along and assign different grades to, different numbers to specific aspects of a coin in terms of strike or luster, or, if there's scratches, like that type of thing? Do you think that would fall under that category?
It could, but I don't think we need it. And all I'm doing is basing this on my own experience, learning how to grade, the classes, the resources that I consumed. Supposedly NGC and PCGS grade based on the ANA's standard for grading US coins type of thing. There's a book that you can get. It's like literally the ANA's standard for grading US coins. And that book helped me out a lot, but the standards are pretty cut and dry. Let me give you an example. Let's say we have a 19, so we know that with early Walking Liberty half dollars, and when I say early, I mean like the teens, most of them were very weakly struck, or many of them at least. And so you had mushy details, you had coins that weren't the most, lustrous, that some of them even had a weird different texture. And so my whole point is that if you have a coin that has 0 contact marks, so it's got the best surface preservation in the world, but it's a really weak strike and has just mushy details and not the most luster, in theory, it's supposed to max out at an MS63. Mm-hmm. And so they've already got a really solid set of guidelines and standards. That doesn't mean that, I've read and heard talk of like a new 0 to 100 scale. I think if it were NGC or PCGS that came up with that, I think that it would be a money grab. I would automatically assume that it's just a money grab to get people to crack out their coins and send them back so that we could literally get paid to grade them again. If a new grading company came out and said, hey, we're going to do a 0 to 100 scale, sure, I think there's room for that if they, again, man, if they could market and brand that product and get the actual market, the consumers, to buy in. That's really, at the end of the day, that's all it boils down to, is the consumer is buying in. The end result is going to be based on whether or not the market likes it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think another thing that I've heard floating around, nothing I've explored because it seems tough to do. I mean, is computer or AI grading something that you think there's space for? Because I've heard, some people think that it sounds like there's a lot of human error, but there can also be computer error. Do you think that that would be feasible, even doable?
I've read a lot about that. I've not actually, let me rephrase. I've heard a lot about that coming from people like, oh, we're moving into this new era of computers and AI and this and that. And my belief is that it's not going to make a bit of difference. I think where a lot of people get, well, and again, this is just my opinion, but what I think is happening is that so many people are so stuck on the idea that this coin is an MS65, period, end. It's black and white. If you say it's less or more, you're wrong. It's an MS65. I disagree with that. I believe that a coin is just like everything else in life. When you look at it, you perceive it based on the factors, your own lenses and the way you see it. I mean, a coin can look so different just based on the 8 different types of light that you look at it under. And so, in my opinion, coin grading is already subjective. It will never be anything other than subjective. In other words, it's just an opinion, and I believe it's always going to be an opinion. So when I try to look at what AI would look like, I don't see it happening, man. I honestly do not see AI taking over the grading game with coins. Now cards, I think they might be a little bit more straightforward. I mean, they base the card of a grade, or excuse me, the grade of a card is based on 4 things: corners, edges, surfaces, and centering. I think maybe an AI program could grade a card and do it consistently, right or wrong, because in theory, a PSA 10 or a BGS 10 or anything that's a 10 that supposedly is perfect, yeah, I think probably actually that the AI could be better at that than humans. But with coins, I just don't see it, man. I really don't. When this really hit me was, when I was first in the business for several years, and I'm just back on coins now, and I would get on eBay and I would look at, let's say, since I brought it up earlier, a 1917 Walking Liberty half dollar, and in the listing it would say MS63/64. It was a raw coin, of course. Well, I mean, I'm looking at the pictures and it's like plain as day. There's no doubt about it. It's AU58 at best. It has wear, And I used to just think, oh, what a scammer, what a scandalous dealer trying to rip somebody off on eBay. And when I went to the ANA, I think it was 2014 or 2015 or something like that, I went to one of the money shows and I took a class on grading, and I was sitting at a table. There was 4 of us seated there, and I was surrounded by dealers, vets. I mean, guys that have been in this business for 30, 40 years. And, we were passing them around the coins, and they pass you a coin, you look at it, and then you write down what you think it graded. And there was a handful of early Walking Liberty half dollars and Standing Liberty quarters. And it's like the way you tilt it under light, you can tell if it's a weak strike or if it's just got wear, And 2 dealers in particular, they bet me lunch, actually. I didn't make them follow through, but literally I was like, that coin has wear. And they're like, no, that's not wear. That's just a weak strike. And I knew right then that he really believed that. He wasn't, if he was one of those sellers on eBay calling that coin an MS63 versus an AU58, I would have been like, oh, he's a shady guy trying to scam people. That's when it hit me that no, everybody just sees coins differently. He truly believes, he's been in this business for 30, 40 years. He believes it's an MS63 and that it's just weakly struck, not lightly circulated or lightly worn. And so we all see coins different, man. It's subjective. It's not science. It's an art. And I believe it's always going to stay that way for coins anyways.
Yeah. No, that's good perspective. And then I think I wanted to touch on something you mentioned earlier. So it's like, with it being a creative marketing campaign and that it's more that as opposed to like a big dealer. Like what if Albanese, for example, went and stopped doing CAC and, handed that to somebody else and like made a third? Like how much of it would be, having is it like, and why or why not having just some real grading vets start a new one? Like, is that something that would be important, or would that pretty much just get looked over?
That's a really good question, and I think I'm glad you asked that question because that makes me clarify on that. I think that if one of those giants in the industry was the one to go and start a coin, the third or the next big one, I think that there definitely could be some merit there. It definitely wouldn't hurt. So yeah, I think it absolutely could make a difference. I just don't think it matters anymore. I think what it's ultimately going to boil down to is making the market accept it. You know what I mean? And most of us, if we're on the end, if we are the market, so if we're the guys buying it from the marketers or buying it off eBay and we're the end users, we're buying coins that are graded to put it in our collection, we don't know the big names anyways, more often than not. And so I think that what it boils down to more than having the big name is just somehow making the market embrace that new grading company, whether it's new technology, a new look, a new strategy. I mean, there's a million different things that you could implement with your holder as far as anti-tampering and, just a whole different, I mean, that's a rabbit hole that I kind of want to try to stay out of, but I think it's just going to boil down to the market and somehow establishing credibility and a demand from the market, no matter who you are.
Yeah, yeah, and then I mean, it's not like a big thing is it's not like people haven't done this even, and I want to talk about the three, and I would say that this is in order of third to fourth to fifth that I've really heard of is ANAX, ICG, SEGs, and SEGs I think is really far below. I think that there's a lot of space between those three as well.
Yeah, I
Why
would
were
agree.
they started, and why didn't they succeed? I know ANAX, some people like for variety attribution, like that's can be a specialty. And I think it's a little bit cheaper. Like I know there's also one like ICCS, I think in Canada that like, I could see there being demand for like a one specific to a country. If you have a lot of collectors, say doing German or Canadian or Chinese coinage, something like that. And then also like maybe it could be like an ancient or medieval, but there's not the same kind of collecting demand for that, I think, either. I know a lot of people like keeping their ancient coins raw. I have no idea what the medieval looks like. So first, I guess a lot of stuff I just said, but like maybe running through a little bit of those three companies I mentioned, like maybe why they haven't been quite as successful. And then, yeah, like would there be, do you think that a third company could, I could see there being a lot of success in a very small type of thing. And I don't know if that's even true.
Okay, so first of all, I don't know if you know this, but Annex was the first grading company. They were the first company to grade coins. That tells you that's just one highlight that kind of exemplifies what I'm trying to say when I say it boils down to marketing. Obviously, NGC and PCGS did something better than Annex, or else they wouldn't be the third slash completely out of the picture. I mean, for me personally, I know that when I see a coin in an Annex holder, I can relatively consider that grade a legit grade, but I also know that if I have that coin and I'm trying to sell it, it's not going to bring anywhere near an NGC or a PCGS grade with the same
Yeah.
grade on the holder. And so they've been around. They were the first. They were the number one. And I do know that there is a very tiny percentage of collectors out there who actually prefer Annex over NGC and PCGS, but it's tiny and it's getting smaller every year, I feel like. And I
Mm-hmm.
believe it's just because of marketing. NGC and PCGS were just more aggressive with what they did do to market and to the registry sets, for example. PCGS started those. It was brilliant. NGC was soon to follow. But they just did more creative things to make it funner for more people that Annex didn't do. And there's other factors too that we don't even need to get into. But to then further answer the question, ICG, SEGs, there's a handful of other ones that I've seen. In my mind, and I could be wrong on this, but in my mind, I personally have never ever been able to take those serious at all. I have no idea if they're legit I mean, sometimes I've just wondered, like, did somebody print that label and put that coin in a holder? You know,
Yeah.
so I don't I don't have enough knowledge about SEGs or ICG. I just know that for me and for the niche I've always been in, and every single dealer I've ever dealt with, it's not, if it's in a SEGs holder or an ICG or whatever those other ones are, it's actually worth less than if it was raw, because someone's going to have to waste their time cracking it out if they buy it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, the serious coins that we've come across in the coin shop, we've been able to make money because we knew what we were doing going into it, but it's like they're grading damaged coins and we have to
Yep.
pay like it's damaged, and you can make money because you did pay like it's damaged. But that's definitely the case. But I guess they're like so minor. Do you think that we could see something around, like, would there be, if the biggest experts in ancient or medieval came together, like the biggest experts in errors, like, do you think that that's what success on par with the third party, like with PCGS and NGC, like I could see there something else beating them out in a specific category? It's just that would then be tough to get the same name recognition um, that they have, because they're not competing on every type of coin.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So first of all, there's a huge world market, and there's a huge market for ancients and foreign, and so world. I guess world is foreign, but the point is there's a huge market for that, and NGC, they own that market outright. I don't know, if PCGS just didn't chase it as aggressively, or I don't necessarily know what steps NGC took to become the industry leader there, but I know that they are, and I know that there's a huge market for it. In regards to a third, I think that you would be shooting yourself in the foot right out of the gate if you started a third grading company and said, we're going to specialize in ancients. And that's just because in order for this third grading company to be embraced and succeed, it would have to be accepted by the masses. In order for it to be even known about by the masses, there would have to be enough product. So in other words, I think what I'm trying to say is you would almost have to start with something modern and easy to find, and something that there's an unlimited quantity of, and start putting that in holders, get that into the hands of the marketers, the guys who are selling them on television or by, internet sales, the marketers, the guys who are literally the market makers who do these big campaigns. You would almost need to get them to embrace it first, and then that way they could sell the market, the end user, on this new grading company, this new holder. I think in order for it to succeed, it would have to start with something where there was almost an unlimited quantity of, so that people could start seeing it and get used to it, and then become aware of it, et cetera, et cetera.
That makes a lot of sense. I think that kind of brings us, yeah, that kind of makes it full circle, because it really is going to be, I feel like people kind of overlook the types, like just getting it out there and getting people to see this sort of thing and see coins in this holder, and like incidentally become familiar, or just like scrolling on Instagram or YouTube, and they see some coins with this label, in a photo of one or something, like that sort of thing. Just like, and over time, that sort of thing would be what leads to its success. And I think that you're right, kind of, and the guerrilla marketing, whatever, the creativity there, probably also going to have to be big in terms of, the publicity. And that's, if we knew how to do it, we'd probably, we might have done it already. So I think that makes sense. Is there anything else that you think is an important takeaway, or something we haven't considered? Because I feel like at this point we've kind of evaluated it from a fair amount of angles.
I guess the only thing I can think of is I hear and see a lot of chatter from dealers, collectors, people in the industry, people interested in the hobby, that there's not enough room, or that it's already saturated. I hear the word saturated a lot. My business experience tells me, and has shown me over time, that there is no such thing as oversaturation. I can look back in several examples in my own life where I literally stopped and looked at something and just thought, man, it's so crazy that there's so many companies. Like, imagine being one of the first. Like, look at bottled water, okay? Bottled water, for instance, 30 years ago, I don't think that you would walk into a gas station and have the option to buy a bottle full of water. Well, someone came along, there was a first, and then there was a second and a third, and you would have thought, holy cow, this is so crazy. Like, I wish I would have started one of those. Well, now you go to the gas station and there's 10. And so it just, I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's always going to be room for more. There's never oversaturation, no matter what industry you're looking at. And the winners are going to be the people who come out with the best strategy, the most creative marketing and branding techniques. And I believe it applies to coin grading or any other grading just as much as merchandise or bottled water.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's definitely true. There's so many things where people, create massive wealth for themselves that I can think of just doing something that somebody else did, and it doesn't even need to be better. It can just be like a sidestep, or just, they have a cool logo, and that's what, or a neat person who's putting out their brand, and then people want to be associated with that person. So I think that's a good way to close. And yeah, I'll be there for it. I'd be super curious to see, if that type of thing happens in the next 5, 10, 20 years. It'll be interesting to see it maybe play out.
Yep, I agree with you. I think that I would be standing there eager to watch, because it would be super, super cool. It would be super fascinating if somehow somebody could come and knock the kings off their throne, so to speak. I mean, look, it's free world. That's how business gets done, but it's not happening in the coin business. And why? Why isn't it happening? It's very fascinating to me. I think the coin business is generally just 10 years behind any other industry. And so it's going to be very interesting when that does happen to see it all play out.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on, and we've got lots more to talk about. We've been, brainstorming some ideas together, and the viewers, just so all the viewers know, we do have some cool stuff, bringing in Chris for that expert opinion on topics that are a step above just something I can chat about on my own, making a video. So thanks again,
Well,
Chris. And
absolutely.
probably be the way we've been doing it, releasing another video with you in 2 weeks.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me on. I really enjoy these conversations. It stimulates my mind a little bit, and it's fun. So I appreciate it. Thanks for everything you've done for me.
Sweet. Thanks for watching the video. I'd encourage you to like, comment, and subscribe for more content, and get in touch with me on my website, treasuretown.yt.com, Facebook, Treasuretown, Instagram @TreasuretownYT, or Twitter @Treasuretown_YT, and I'll look forward to seeing you on some of my future vids.